Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week at DroneDJ. And this week, we're back to covering drone news, kicking off with the headline last week, which identified, I believe it's a German team that identified the security flaws in DJI firmware.
Hmm.
And the second part of that story is DJI responded by saying those security flaws had been fixed. So let's take a look into details. Let me share the full story here too.
Yeah, we got to share screen here. We were talking too much about other stuff. We've got to set up share screen.
Yeah, there we go. So first of all, what did they identify? So they were using Mini 2, I see Mini 2, Mavic Air 2, Mavic 2, and Mavic 3. Which is interesting because if you look at them, most of them are the prior generation drone models. However, when they were doing the research, they found that they could stream random data inputs that provoked crashes, altered functioning, etc., and then they could modify the identity that include inaccurate drone information and pilot localization capabilities. So those were the flaws that they identified. And what led to that was obviously someone could change log data, serial number, disguise their identity, and relating this to some of the remote ID discussions we had before, right? If the remote ID or the drone information you look at is not accurate, it defeats the purpose. And DJI responded by saying that this issue has already been fixed, and they also altered they have a bug bounty program. So DJI has a bug bounty program which will reward you if you find any bugs or flaws in their system. Um, that's no different, than Apple, Microsoft, any of the either hardware or software companies, right? Encourages hackers or any team trying to look for flaws in their system, and that does
Yeah.
help. I mean, it works both ways as long as it's not a hostile hacking. Right, you're not doing illegal activities, like not causing harm or damages. If you're
Yep.
identifying system issues and helping the provider to fix that, I think this is a positive story. I know when the headline first came out, everyone was concerned about the security leaks, the potential system flaws,
Hmm.
but the positive part is, hey, the manufacturer is responding quickly, they are fixing the issues just like any system, right?
And I don't know specifically how DJI handles these things, but when we're talking about like other tech companies like Apple, Google,
Hmm.
Amazon, I mean, there are research firms and companies that are so focused on this kind of task that they're hackers or security experts that look into vulnerabilities of iPhones and smartphones and MacBooks and other things, and they try to look into find ways, and then they publish their findings first privately to the company that they're researching, and then they fix it, and then they publicly publish it. I don't know if usually there's a lot of I know Apple Apple has a bug
There's a
bounty
process,
program
yeah,
where if you find something
yeah.
you can pay for as well. Like there's a process where they release it tandemly that hey, we fixed this. Like this is the issue, but they fixed it already. Or I don't know if DJI has that. Maybe
They do
DJI like
have a bug
fixed it and then
bounty.
they
Yeah,
didn't
they do have a
respond to
bug
anything.
bounty program, but I
Yeah.
don't know the details, right? Like if you're
Yeah, I don't
getting
know the
paid,
details either. It's all over
there
the
are
yeah.
conditions you have adhere to. Does it involve any NDAs, right? Does it involve
Hmm.
any non-disclosure? So those are also the questions. What was also interesting is if we look at the end of the story, the Drone ID solution DJI designed a few years ago was aligned with the regulatory remote ID solutions in many jurisdictions. So one thing
Hmm.
to look at the drone industry is keeping in mind what was designed even 1 year ago may be
Yeah.
very different, right,
Oh yeah.
than from the update today. And personally, I just want to share one experience. When we were flying our M30T and we had our Mini 3 Pro on site at the same time, when we turned on the M30T, it caused the interference, bleed it into Mini 3 Pro, and
Hmm.
forced the Mini 3 Pro to actually come home. So Mini 3 Pro actually just by itself decided I'm gonna return to home. No low battery, nothing, just set interference and decided to come home. So there was
Yeah.
definitely some, like what they were saying, you could alter what was the words? You could alter the actions, like the movements of the drone, altered functioning. So we
Yeah.
did see that, right?
I wonder if that's just they have stronger antennas, and so it's just overpowering. The
I
minis
don't know, but
antennas?
it shouldn't be on the same channel. It shouldn't be
Yeah. Were you
causing like
using
interference.
were you using the RC or the RC Pro? Well, for the
RC.
mini
So
for the
M30 was the RC
RC
Plus, and
Plus.
Mini 3 Pro was RC Pro.
Oh, okay, never mind that. Because I know there's a lot of people who've had issues with interference on the RC.
With the DJ, with a regular
Yeah, with
RC.
just regular RC, you'll just have even just like being near power closer to a power line, you'll just
Yeah.
grabbing
But
at against them.
last week we flew them again at the same time and we didn't have
Mhm.
any issue.
Oh, well, never
And
mind
there
then.
was a
Maybe
major enterprise. There was a major enterprise firmware update last week too. Again,
accidentally just Mini 3 just
you
fly through a
never
crowd of
know.
drones and just downs everyone.
There are so many things happening, and with that story, let's also flow into the second story of the week, which is counter drone solutions.
Mhm.
EU essentially is trying to seek industry input, right? Asking stakeholders to try to brainstorm, put their heads together, and see what are actual effective counter drone solutions. Along with this story, at the same week, DJI has also decided to stop the production for Aeroscope, which, if you ask me, from all of the detection, I mean, the drone detection and counter drone, right, are not like detection. It's a step. It's part of counter drone solutions. So from all of the drone detection systems, and I've seen about 5, 6 different kinds,
Mhm.
Aeroscope so far has been the most accurate one and providing the best complete information on DJI drones among all of the other drone detection systems I've seen. And just to give you an example, um, over the summer, so last summer, we had our open field days on our training site when, we would have 10, 20 drones flying at the same time. That's when we had several teams bring in their drone detection system because that was a good time to test it. You have so many different
Mhm.
drones in the air. And most of those systems, they can tell you there's a drone in the air.
Can't
But
say anything else though.
can say, I mean, some of them can give you the height telemetry data, give you, estimated GPS coordinates, but it's not telling you if the drone is moving. It's not giving you heading information, right? It's
Mhm.
not giving you the flight controller information. It's also not telling you where the pilot is. Because most of the time, if you're concerned with a drone flight, you want to find the pilot.
Yeah,
Because
that's
good
the way
luck
to
trying to trace the drone, right?
yeah.
Once it starts going up, like leaving your site, if this is on your private property and you want to find who's flying that drone or do something with it, you have to find the pilot. So they weren't providing the actual controller or the pilot information. Versus Aeroscope was actually providing the pilot information, complete drone information. But again, two concerns from that end. One is Aeroscope. I've only seen it working for DJI drones, so I can't speak about any
Mhm.
other brands, right? If it's Autel, if it's Skydio, I don't know how it actually works. Number two, at the early stage when I saw Aeroscope, it was displaying like a scary amount of information. So if I'm looking from the other side to say I'm just a drone pilot flying on my own, side
Mhm.
property or flying for my own projects, legal projects, if someone purchased the Aeroscope, then they can get a lot of information from my drone operations.
Yeah.
And are they allowed to, right? Can
That
they,
was
should
always the
they?
big concern with Aeroscope is that it gives so
Is
much
anyone
personal
can buy it?
information. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know I know DJ vetted people. Like I don't think anyone can buy it, but it's because also there's a
They
price.
do
There's
try to
also a
filter.
price gate as well.
Well, they
Yeah,
do try to filter who's actually buying. So
yeah.
this is not a public product you can just go on their website and, place an order. Let me put
Hmm.
it this way. Many
You
people
gotta. It's like
were
enterprise
interested
stuff
in
where you have to
buying.
contact them to
Right.
get
Yeah, it's
information.
mostly for legitimate reasons like
Hmm.
airport, prison, different locations. But again, going back to there's got to be a balance on who's using this, what information is it seeing? Because back then it was scary amount of information.
Hmm.
Especially, say, if I get DJI no flight on unlock, that has to verify my personal identity, right? Either through my bank account or through a phone number of some sort if I want to unlock.
Yep.
So those informations all associated with my DJI account, which is logged into the controller when I'm flying. Um, Again, I haven't seen detailed on, okay, this is, I guess this is why when we circle back to, EU, it's saying they're seeking input to find drone counter drone solutions. So that's the difference between solution and drone detection. because detection, again, it's a very small step of a counter drone solution. Personally, I was always interested in aeroscope. Just imagine, I mean, we have a 70-acre site, and it is a
Mhm.
scenic site. So even before we built drone school, there were local photographers who just go to the corner of the site during nice weather and film the sunset, because we have a little bit of rolling hills. Sunset
Mhm.
looks really nice in the summer and in the fall time. We're already concerned. We did hear a couple of drones passing by over, the 5 years we've been on site, and we know they were not ours.
Hmm.
So to me, I already have concern on number one, what if somebody else is flying in without my permission? And we're doing training or testing on site. How can I prevent that? Legally speaking, that's federal airspace. Someone could stop on the road,
Yeah.
see, nice scenery, decided to take off with their drone and not knowing
Yeah,
and crashing into ours.
that's the big thing here too, because a lot of it's federal airspace, but how do you? I mean, you can't. A private citizen can't do anything about it, but how do you go about it? Because there's places like Disney World and Disneyland where you can't fly over it. There's
But they don't
perpetual
have
TFRs.
jurisdiction, technically speaking.
But yeah, and I think, and that's a loophole through what happened with 9/11 and a whole bunch of way to get kind of those perpetual TFRs. And they've had that going since then. But there are ways to get that around. I don't know whether or not a private company can do that. I don't know. I mean, SpaceX has a perpetual TFR down in South Padre Island for their launch area, and that's all private land. It's not like Kennedy Space Center over in Florida, which is government land. And they have a restricted airspace. That's just a private land. So
Well, if you right, so
it's
if
just
you
like
don't go
whether or not
through,
you have the ability to hit the lawyers to go through the red tape. I'm sure that's probably the limiting factor there.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, same thing as ski hills, right?
Yeah.
Ski resorts. How many? I'm sideways into. Remember with Lily when we talked about
Hmm.
that Lily drone, that crowdfunding drone?
Yeah.
One of the questions we asked at the time was, okay, you say you can build a drone that can smartly, intelligently follow you as you're skiing.
Hmm.
Which ski hill is going to allow you to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember our publisher did a comparison of the Mavic 3 and the Skydio 2 down a ski hill, and it took him, I think, months to finally get the approval of the skiing the company
And
there to let him do
even
that. It's
leaving the
not easy.
ski hill, permission out of the
Hmm.
equation. Are you skiing there by yourself at the
Yeah.
ski resort? Are
I
there
think
people around you?
yeah,
What
he
about
had to
people
wait until
around
the
you?
end of the season to finally do it when there was like a handful of people skiing at a time. So
And are they gonna be happy with it?
yeah, I'm sure you yeah. There's always issues with everything. Yeah,
We've
for
actually
sure.
been reached out by several of the counter drone solution providers,
Hmm.
to wanting to feature, their products and talk about their solutions. Like I said, there's a big need for it. Even just for private business, we have a
Yeah,
big need for it. Detection is a small
and
part. What
I
about
think the
prevention?
laws need to catch up to where that private companies do need it, and I don't think that's really written in the laws yet to
And
allow
even
private
from
companies to kind of
if
get
if we
regulation
look
to.
at the typical solutions flow, I mean, let's face it, anytime there's new technology, um, laws are always catching up.
Hmm.
So let's talk about, even from technology perspective, is technology ready? What technology is there? Detection is a very small step of it, or a very small part of it.
Yeah,
What about preventing, other drones to
yeah.
fly in the space, where you have, for example, for us, we legitimately have reasons where other people shouldn't just fly on our side without permission, because we have
Hmm.
training happening all the time, right? And number two is, if some drones got through and are flying there without your permission, how do
Yep.
you stop them?
And one of the other thing is also
Are
what
you
would
even
be
allowed to stop them?
can you stop if you're allowed to stop them? What systems are available that can stop them within your property, but not outside your property or whatever,
And
and
also
making sure you're not.
stop them safely, because at the
Yeah,
end of the day, are you forcing them to land on your property? In that case, are
or
you,
return the home.
almost illegally seizing somebody else's personal property?
Hmm.
Do you even have
Um,
jurisdiction to do that, right?
and if it fails, what are your options to safely, take it down? I mean, Like you can't, we're not going to be shooting down drones here. Like that's very much not legal and safe at all. So you can't do that. But if your system doesn't work and you have a drone flying around, like what are your options at that point? That even if you've gained the right to take down drones in your airspace, in your airspace, the airspace around your property, how can you do it if the system fails, which might be tricky in a way.
So we don't really have an answer at
Ethan,
this point.
Ethan with those big drone guns, like it's running around.
Oh, I do want to try them. I mean, even
I
the
want to
ones
try one so bad.
with the netting, right?
Hmm.
So there are different ones. The ones with netting, they tried bird solutions. There were so many different counter drone solutions on the market. And what's interesting is what give it 2-3 years and see how many of them are are still on the market. That's also the
Hmm.
question.
I mean, the ones that are being developed by governments are really doing well over in so yeah.
Well, if you're using them, the difference is military using them, or
Hmm.
is civilian or civil commercial
I
using
haven't
them.
seen any private companies using them. Every time I've seen them in use, it's always been military or
Because you
government.
can't, I mean, for private, we don't have the authority to just see somebody else's property,
Yeah, but
right?
government does. So I guess why government is able to use them. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to call the cops. You have to like
I mean,
send their special unit with their big
I've
drone gun
already
out.
seen several stories of angry neighbors or angry residents shooting down a
Mhm.
drone, right, and got themselves into trouble. That has happened.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so you can't. That's a big no-no. You
Yeah.
can't do that.
Again, it's an open discussion. We don't have a solution, but I guess we'll keep following on the topic. I know I would be number one to go if someone comes up with a solution that can help me, to
Mhm.
stop the unauthorized drones flying on my side. I'll be the first one to jump in.
Ife will be there.
Well, just like what happened with the drone security with a speaker, right? I was the first one to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go fly and yell at trespassers."
Yell at people.
Segue into new drones. We've covered several stories on the Inspire 3 last year. Still haven't seen the official release of Inspire 3, but the update is the drone design leaked in patent images, which is from patent
Hmm.
application. I don't see much of a difference from the initial Inspire design, like the Inspire series
Yeah,
design. Looks like it's kept the consistency.
yeah. A lot of people were talking about how drastic the change has been, and I don't. I see that they've made changes to it, like they've cleaned it up and they've moved some sensors to certain areas, but it still looks like an Inspired drone to me. Like it's still, you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's an Inspired drone. So they've
I
kept
did
it. They
like
just
the
kind of cleaned it
Inspire.
up.
Yeah, I did like Inspire design. I thought they were like
Yeah.
when it first came out, I thought it was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, although in that image, the top right image, that's an old image that's been around for a while. That's like it was leaked inside their office
Right.
tour video. That has thrown me off so much because it wasn't until like a little bit ago I realized that's two Inspired drones next to each other, but in the
Yeah.
image it looks like it's one Inspired drone with
Oh,
eight
you know,
propellers.
yeah, if you didn't
I'm
know
like,
Inspire,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm sitting,
very
I'm just like,
I can see that happening.
did they add is the Inspired 3 gonna have 8 propellers? Like, dear gosh, it's gonna be a large drone. And it didn't really, I'm like, oh wait, it's two next to each other, not lined up perfectly to where
Yeah,
you can't
because
see it all.
Intel, if you look up Intel drone, Intel did
Hmm.
buy the design of a drone several years ago, and that looked similar to that. It did have
Hmm.
eight motors.
Yeah, and another part we didn't cover on the show yet, but I can't remember which leaker leaked it, but that the Inspire 3, I think it was about a month ago or
Hmm.
end of February, went to their key opinion leader, which is, I've only heard this in DJI speak. I've never heard this in any other company, but that's the person who kind of lets, it's like the final say on whether or not it's ready for release. So um, that apparently takes 2 months. So possibility of getting this released. It's 2 months since then. It's usually when they get released. So possibly end of next month is when we can see this finally released. But
We're
I don't know. We'll
March
see.
already this year. I'm surprised we haven't seen official new drone from DJI this year yet.
Yeah, we got the. I mean, this week they released a new version of the Ronin 4D, and that's pretty much, I think, all
And
we've
then
seen.
earlier they did release just the mini 2, a
Oh, the
very
Mini 2 SE as well.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Mini
yeah.
2 SE,
The
which
Mini
is
2
not really a
SE.
complete, I mean, it's not a complete new
N-
drone.
No, no, not really. I mean, it's a good drone. I mean,
It
I
is.
kind of I want one. I kind of want one still. I want to get a review unit still, and I haven't had any luck yet with that. So I might be buying one.
Well,
But
last year they did release the M30, M30, I believe was released around March.
was it March last year? It was, and enterprise stuff. I mean, I don't know where this team is. I don't know where the Inspire team leads. The consumer side of DJI is like they can't keep anything secret, and the enterprise team is like the most tight-lipped team I've ever seen in the
Maybe just
industry.
people don't care that
Like
much on the
they'll
enterprise.
just they'll just release something, and all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, this just released, cool. Or like it's so I don't know where Inspire lands on
Inspire
their
still falls with their, so they have right now they no longer have the consumer, they used to have
yeah.
consumer, professional, and enterprise. Now
Yeah.
it's just camera drone and then
And then
industry drone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm sure this is why we're seeing leaks come out, plenty of leaks come out of the Inspire, but we'll see how tight-lipped they can get with this release, which if I was a betting man, I would not be betting on that.
Now, to wrap up the week with a cheerful story, this is a Drones for Good story. Using drones to find lost dogs, and apparently the
Hmm.
charities found about 1,400 lost dogs. I have to say, I'm really surprised. And if they found a way to make it work, that's great. I would love to hear more about this because I did have a neighbor calling us to say, "Hey, we heard drones could help us find lost dogs. Can you help us to go look for our lost dog in the neighborhood?"
Hmm.
Um, and I'm looking at the subdivision, right? So the first thing that happened in my head is, okay, number one, I need a thermal drone
Yep.
because otherwise, I can't see just a
You're not
dog.
gonna be able to see anything.
If
Yeah.
if you fly 50, 60 meters high, there's no way you can spot a little dog in there. So I need a thermal drone, number one. Number two is if I'm flying over in the neighborhood and if there are people down there, I can't just fly over their heads.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of things going on with that.
And
It's hard to do. Is this a US or a Canadian or what, you
UK,
know?
it's actually this is a
UK.
UK story,
Okay.
um, which they do
Okay,
have less
zero. Yeah.
space. So then number three, I was thinking is,
And
okay, if a dog runs loose, is it gonna run out in the open field? What happens if
mhm.
it's under running under? What happens if they're tree coverage? If they're under trees, right? If they're under
W
some kind of roof, like either gazebo, some kind of cover, then I can't even see it with a drone. So how
yeah.
effective is this gonna be? So those were my stories when neighbor, or those were my questions when our neighbor just called us and I said, "Do you know the area where the dog had gone loose? Do you know the size of the dog, the color? Because again, it's winter. If it's white on snow and we have snow coverage, right, it's gonna be very difficult to see as well." So I had some practical questions, and since if this team is able to find 1,400 lost dogs, I would
They
really
figured it
love
out.
to hear. Yeah, I love to hear a little more of the inside story. I mean, if this is a proven
Yeah.
solution, I think then more people should actually use it.
It's interesting to see how where in the UK they're based off or where they do this because some parts of UK are like
It could
very
be rural.
are
It
heavily
could be very
packed and
rural.
heavily urban areas, and then some
Yeah.
cities are very rural and very open. So and also regulation in UK is also very weird, and some spots are very restrictive, and other spots are like, yeah, sure, cool, go right ahead, we don't care. Like it's really weird.
And they do have
UK's
volunteers
navigation.
searching on foot as well. It's not just,
Yeah,
I mean, this is not a sole solution just using drones.
yeah.
So the data comes back as, would be interesting to know how much
I mean, you could
drone actually played in part of that.
just even having not even flying over areas, just being able to go up 400 feet with a thermal and be like, hey, there's nothing over here, so don't worry about searching over
Well,
here. There's nothing over here, don't worry about searching
If
over
I use
here.
M30T with the thermal, I can see
Uh-huh.
a couple of kilometers out,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, like as long as you don't necessarily have to be flying over land, you just have to be like, hey, there's nothing in this field, so don't worry about
Mhm.
searching this
You can,
field,
yeah,
which
definitely
could
you can
save a
play
lot of time.
elimination game. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think if they can hook up something with mapping, some kind of automation. I remember back a few years ago, University of Toronto did do a research project actually with one of the Toronto police agencies, where they designed an app to, if you input missing person information, like
Hmm.
age, etc., like all the characteristics, it actually searches. What it does is searches the map and it gives you high probability areas first, based on
Yeah.
terrain, based on, is the person disabled, where could they go, what's their speed, what's their physical characteristics. So to me, like listening or just reading this story, I would be interested to know how to take a bigger part into technologies to say bring the map into the play, and like you said, send the
Hmm.
drone up with thermal and first do a pass, right, to say okay, we can eliminate areas already,
Yep.
and then can we identify high probability or high interest areas? I think those are more of the interesting questions to
And
me.
we have our answer. It is not simple to
Not
fly in
simple
the
to fly in.
UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's no different. That's no
there's
different
no
than it's no
yeah.
different than in Canada. You can't just decide to fly over people's neighborhoods. And I wouldn't be comfortable of doing that because especially if it's my neighborhood, I want to be a good neighbor. I don't
Hmm.
want people to say, hey, I'm worried about my privacy. I'm out in my yard suntanning and the drone is just buzzing around,
I think it depends on whose dog it is.
right?
Is it my dog? Is it someone else's
I
dog?
mean,
I don't
from an
know.
owner, I have a dog. From an owner perspective, I
Yeah.
can definitely see I want to do everything I can to try to find my dog
That's
for
probably
sure.
what this whole system's like. Oh, my dog got lost. Oh, I have his drone. Let me just fly around and just find this. Okay, cool. Let me do it for other people.
So there's more to be discovered from the story. We'll try to contact the organization and get some
Yeah,
answers. Maybe
that'd be
we do a
great. We could
focus
just have them
topic.
on.
Maybe this is another of our drone business story. So we'll have one Kirk's Drone Agriculture Fund.
If there's anything I know from the United States, that you can take a nonprofit from another country and make it for profit in the United States. So you can find a way.
There you go.
Dog drone search insurance.
Yes. Well, those are all the stories we got for you this week, and we hope to see you back here next week.